All right, folks. Hey, welcome on back here for another edition this Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern, September 19th. Our weekly Traders Talk Workshop Q&A edition hosted by myself, Josh Levitan. Great to see all of our students and members alike inside our live trading room. Ravina, Ryan, Margaret, Brad, we had Larry, Lawrence, Kathleen, Sam, and a few more of us joining us right now, topping off the morning session that we just had earlier inside our live trading room. So great to have all of you there. Great to have all of us back, perhaps on our YouTube channel at Cyber Trading U. So without further ado, of course, right now the markets have been dropping off going into this Fed meeting. As we all should know, the Fed meeting began today. It goes into tomorrow. And, at 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, we'll see what the Fed decision is as far as officially the rates and any other, policies that they may decide. Then from there, I have a little competition at 2:30 Eastern tomorrow afternoon. We have Jerome Powell likely doing some sort of presser, where he gives his official remarks and all that good stuff. So, hey, outside of the market trending down, I was not really expecting much across the market. Normally, the longer that you're here inside our live trading room, at least, you get to experience these days like, pre-holiday days and pre-Fed decision days or pre-election days even, where there's a lot of hesitation across the market or there's just lower volume just being traded across the market. So, hey, we had a pullback, a couple good shorts today. That's not stopping AVGR, right? Or at least it wasn't from earlier. It looks like it's building a pennant now. And for a stock that makes such a big pop in the morning, we typically know what's going to happen to it at some point throughout the day, as we evidently saw just yesterday, right? Actually, we could even go back to yesterday to do the full review of this trade from A to Z. So I know I had a couple emails on this earlier from this morning, just in lieu of Traders Talk Workshop today, and wanting me to go over this AVGR, at least from this morning. But actually, let's just even begin from yesterday. So there's a lot to dig into here. Let me get my level 4 up here. I got all sorts of crap up here right now on my screen. I got video. So AVGR, where are we here? There we go. We're going to go back to yesterday. And listen, hey, if this is your first time joining me in Traders Talk, if you're a new trial member joining me live inside our trading room, or if you're just on YouTube, it's easy to say what happened in hindsight, right? Looking at this, picture that's already painted, it's easy to say, oh, in the morning it popped up from 525 up to 850-ish or so roughly. Then it pulled back and then it made a lower high and tanked. That's not what we're here for. That's not why we're here, right? We're here to at least dig into the real X's and O's as far as where the big levels are, where the big support resistance levels are across the day are. So looking at this in pre-market, this popped up early at 8:30, then tanked. Wasn't looking good then. I guess it revved back up a bit. So once you begin to see it trend back up, gives you some interest. Okay, maybe at some point this can make like a real pop, a real actual run. I mean, that's really the only thing I'm thinking about here at this very point in time. So when I look at this heat map, I'm not even going to ask us inside our chat board because honestly, the answer is not as easy. There's a lot of crap here, actually a lot of dots. So I'm going to look to kind of make this a lot larger. So give me a quick moment. Really, I don't like to have too many dots on the screen. Gets a little cluttery. You have a bunch of these short-lived orange red lines that pop up. Keyword being or key phrase being a bunch, meaning if there's really more than a few, that doesn't mean that there's any one standing out more than another. So none of those really are looking that like great to me. Yeah, they're orange and red, but there's a lot of them. If there's just like one of them, I'd say, okay, that one price is a big level. Okay, well, you could always rely on good old whole number levels and 50-cent increment levels like $5, $5.50, $6, $6.50, $7. Those are likely going to be levels where we'll see some big volume traded at. And for what it's worth, I will say 6 here seemed to have been holding pretty nicely as a top. A couple points where it perks above it here, so it's not perfect, but at $6 whole number level, it was holding there kind of nicely, right? All right, so I will say 6. But if there is one level that stands out in relation to volume, I would say right around here, like 590 as well. So there is a lot more volume traded off of 590. Again, you could say 582, but 590 we'll say, and then from there 6. So point being is what happens after the market opens up during prime time hours, that is, from like 9:35 to 10 o'clock or so roughly. Maybe going into 10:30, but sooner is better than later. For this to break over that resistance. It could be a head fake, so you always want to cross your T's and set your stops. But hey, you're never going to make money if you don't take a trade. And this is the level to take this trade off of. It seems like 590 really, but then 6 as your like whole number level, just the top here, that seems to be pretty strong. All right, so when the market opens, what happens? Well, it looks like this actually breaks over 6 before the market even opens. How about that? So there we go. So this actually I want to shed some light on then. So, okay, pops above 6 before the market even opened. Do you just jump in? Just take this trade right here? Well, folks, it's easy to say that it popped up higher after the market opened, didn't it? This is right before the open, though. This is at not only after 9:10, 9:15, where I normally say to hang back and not trade, but at like 9:25 in the morning, that's really where you should just kind of hang back and just say, okay, I'm focused on this stock, that stock, and this other stock. I'm focused on these 3 trades. I'm focused on these levels. I'm taking a deep breath. I'm not trying to jump into a trade before all the craziness really begins. Also in pre-market, as we should know at least, you can't set stops. So, of course, I'll trade pre-market, as I'll show you, just coming up here on the AVGR from this morning. I don't want to jump off course or go on a tangent. So I'll show you what I did on AVGR this morning. But at least that was during like 8 o'clock, 8:30, going into 9 o'clock. This is right before the open. So if you're not as adjusted to trading pre-market, knowing that you can't set a stop order to protect you, then there's a lot of emotion on the line here, right? So yeah, it's easy to say it popped, and then further, yeah, it broke even higher. Congrats. Just odds are I'm not taking this trade. I didn't take this trade here, and odds are I just wouldn't take it. Like out of 100 times, probability says I'm just going to hang back. It's a Monday morning on top of that. So, to begin the week even, let's just kind of chill out for a bit. So I will say 6. Now, is there a level that we could work off of with this pre-market data here now? Not really still. Not really. Maybe 650, like we were saying, 50-cent level. Okay, so let's just go ahead to the market open. We normally wait to, hang back the first 3 to 5 minutes here even before we actively jump into trades. So here, when the market opens, looks like we have a big print that comes in pretty quickly. I guess I'll label this the opening bell print, 29,000 shares at like 640, 641. This does become a level for the time being. We'll see how strong it is within the first couple of minutes or whatnot. So what happens? Well, of course, it runs up at first, right? It looks like it's about to get halted even, then it pulls back a bit. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me ask us here for Lawrence, Rod, Lee, and Ryan, Ravina, Margaret, and all of us here joining me inside our live trading room, at least, and on our social feed as well, on YouTube as well. Hey, answer. When a stock breaks above resistance, we'll call this price now a resistance. Early within the first minute or so, it broke over it, and it freaking ran. It made a big pop and run, right? When a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, we'd like to think that resistance should initially become what? For all of us here. Yeah, support. Okay, so it breaks out right away. Let's hang back for a second, right? It's just the first couple minutes. Obviously, there are occasions, albeit not as often, where a stock just keeps ripping and running with no pullback. All right, in those occasions, then we have to move on. We, as in myself too. Like, hey, I follow my rules pretty tightly here. I try to have an exciting life outside of CTU and trading, folks. But I'm a real stickler here when it comes to CTU and my own trading. So with that, if there's a stock that just rips and runs completely without me, you got to move on to another trade. And you, as in me, like I would move on to another trade. So what happens here? It pulls back. Well, about 15 minutes later, look what happens. It comes down. Not only does it come down, not only does it hit that level, but it makes the perfect type of move that I advocate for on a day-to-day basis. Actually, just yesterday, I was chatting with like a bunch of different students in the private chat inside our live trading room. We have the Phase 1 stock course taking place this week. We restarted the education cycle from the very top again. So we're into like Phase 1, class number 1. And we're showing you, hey, like myself, Rich, John, Alex, Nick, Fausto, of course, himself, we're super accessible through the private chat feature inside our live trading room. So, hey, this week, expectedly so, and I appreciated it. I had a lot of students chatting me from yesterday into this morning, and I'm reiterating to them, hey, you know what? when a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, the first test is the best test, right? I wrote that to a couple of different traders. They may be joining me live right now, so perhaps they could. When a stock breaks above resistance, it's the first test in which it's the best test. The more times in which that level keeps getting poked at, eventually it's getting weakened. So what happens is the more it gets poked at, it's going to get broken through on the way down. So what I mean by that is market open. We're going to consider this first dot, this big dot here right at 9:30, a few seconds after 6:40, 6:41 roughly. That is your weekly open price, the opening bell print for the day. And well, hey, with Monday, it was for the week. So by the time it pulled back, right, my best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up. So that relates to breakouts. That easily could relate to a breakout. But in terms of support, you do want to see the stock fall under the level first because, hey, if it falls under it and just keeps dropping, there's no entry. You're not pressing buy. It's not like you have an order left out there, hanging out there, waiting to get filled. You are waiting to see what happens here, but you need to make sure the stock does this exact move here. There was a trade I followed on a coaching call with a student like live last week. It was on Thursday, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. The stock, I think it was even Carvana, if I'm not mistaken as well. We'll say Carvana dropped down to $50, like huge level, psychological level, half a century level number. And it just so perfectly hit the price and then just bounced right off of it. And I had to sit there and tell the trader, honestly, because I'm a stickler to my own rule set and how I trade. Yeah, I likely wouldn't have taken that trade there. Just it hit there, right there, held it for like a minute, but didn't break under it and just bounced up perfectly there. How often does that happen? Not as often as I'd want it to happen. So, if that was the case, I'd be a lot more privy to take that type of trade. Where I'm coming to here is that this does exactly to the T what I teach in class, what Fausto wants you to look for, and what we go over on a day-to-day basis here in here inside our live traders trading room, and weekly, of course, here in our weekly workshop Traders Talk. So it went under, and then very quickly, you could say it's on this bar. If it was on this bar, I'd say the same thing though. Under and over, under and over. And as soon as it breaks back through that level on the way up, hey, we do this every week here, folks, right? So you're getting the greatest hits here today with me. For Lawrence, Sam, Lee, Rod, and all of us here. When a stock breaks through a big level, little water break time, what are we getting shortly after? What should we be expecting shortly after a stock breaks through a big level? And we jump in, we take the trade. There we go. I got a kick out of Ryan on that one. So yeah, big move shortly after, right? Now that big move could be a big move down. You set your stop very tightly to that price. You could be wrong in this assessment where it might hold it for a minute, give you a tiny bounce, but not a big bounce, not the move that you're looking for. Hey, for a $5, $6 stock, how big is the question? Well, let's focus on time. It hit here like right around 9:45, 9:46 in the morning. All right, so let's say if reversal time is around 10:15, 10:30, I'm not necessarily holding until 10:15, 10:30 Eastern, but you know what? I'll see if this can make higher lows and continue to build up towards that time frame. The more it pops up in a shorter time frame, you're going to be more likely to just take the money and run. Hey, little question here for all of us joining me live. Just full transparency, please. For a $5 to $10 stock, may I ask you, how often is it when you trade a $5 to $10 stock that you make a 50-cent profit on it? How often? Like from your own trading. There's no competition here, folks. It ain't no swinging contest, if you know what I mean. But let me just ask, how often for a $5 to $10 stock is it that you make a 50-cent profit on one trade? I got my guy Lawrence I in here, who's a sharpshooter. He'll make 50 cents on maybe a couple trades, few trades there, but on one shot. Not often, are a lot of us saying, right? Ryan says he made it this morning on the AVGR. There you go. It's nice to see, right? The question is how often though? Is it often? Is it a lot? Is it every now and then? Is it not often at all? Or is it never? Right? It's really what it boils down to. And if the answer is not often, or it happens fairly every now and then you should be more privy to take the money and run when you're up that 50 cents, right? Chuck says, hey, about 20% of the time. That sounds pretty solid to me, Chuck. I'll tell you what, that's pretty decent in terms of the amount of times you're trading a $5 to $10 stock. Like, in this environment, prime time hours, you're putting yourself in. Okay, well, hey, in that case, then you could look to scale out on part of it, then hold on to a good chunk of it and play by the cyber clock, right? Level by level. But for those that don't make it often at all, or rarely ever, or never, you should be more keen to take that 50-cent move and run, and just that's it. But of course, when it makes this pretty quick bounce and it's still only 9:50 in the morning, 9:49 in the morning, you say, okay, well, you know what? It already broke above 7 a few times here this morning, right? From earlier, it broke over it. Even here, nasty pop and drop. So it's pretty intimidating, you can call it. Pretty volatile, you could say. Even again here, it moves back up to it, and then it holds it, rightfully so. But hey, for all of the times in which it's nipping and gnawing at $7, just like we talked about with 641, well, the first test is the best test. But what happens the more times it nips and gnaws that level? It's weakening it, right? You'd like to think the more times it presses up against 7 that we should get. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. A big move shortly after. So pardon me, I don't have this story perfectly down pat, minute by minute myself. But, just to say, over time, the more often in which this level gets tested, we should be getting that decisive reaction off of it, right? Now, there's a couple of instances here, like you can easily say that it will hold resistance compared to, oh, it might break out. So, for instance, nasty pop and drop right here. So after this pop and drop and it tanks, I'd say, oh, that's not looking good. I would move on to another trade there at that point, honestly. If you weren't in this trade from 641, then honestly, this shake isn't looking too appetizing. So, as you turn back to the stock, maybe 15 minutes later, 10 minutes later, it's like, oh, wow, this didn't tank. Okay. Well, from this test to this test, how much time has gone by? 9:52 to about 10:02. 10 minutes has gone by in between level tests there. We've seen longer in between level tests, but to me, and we talk about this often here, is the more times in which a stock is testing a level in a shorter concentration, you should be getting that decisive move. Even if this were to have tanked after it made the head fake one more time, it's to say, well, it's pressing up against it here and here and here. It keeps testing it. Then finally, thankfully, it's easy to say it popped upward, but it made that decisive reaction up, right? So, hey, it is to say if you jump into a trade and it's not making that decisive reaction very shortly after, then you have to be very careful. You want to make sure the stock isn't breaking a lower low, or at least if it's not really kind of breaking lower from where it last was holding at here, then there's a chance, but otherwise you got to be very careful in a situation like that. So, it's easy to say it chopped around, then broke out. If you jumped in and took a small loss or a break even, and then the sucker popped up right on up after without you, those moments are frustrating. But I'll tell you, if that's happening more often than it's not, then my guess is that there has to be something wrong with the entry. There has to be an issue with you identifying a big level or knowing when it's the right time to jump in from that level. So, if that happens to you every now and then, it happens to the best of us. I don't want to shrug it off, but hey, if that's a very consistent issue, then that is something that you and I would need to work together one-on-one with. All right, so folks, there's a lot to dig into. I got some questions coming in through email, a bunch that came in actually, a couple coming in from chat, and then I have a lot more to digest, on this AVGR trade from yesterday and then into this whole morning. So really quick, Jith asking here in the main chat, this is the problem. How do we know with which hit it's going to break? So that was from just before. I did just reiterate a second ago. The more times in which it tests that big level in a shorter concentration, that's where I feel most confident. So just stick with that. So, hey, over time, the stock obviously popped. It pulled back. This went through the spin cycle throughout the afternoon. Hey, heading into the mid-afternoon, there was a chance for this to try and go and pop. Actually, really quick, this gives me a good chance to go into another little instance I had with a student, private chat, just like talking just about a move. That's all. And they were asking me about support on the stock. And at the time, I said, well, at the time, it was a little delayed reaction because I was doing the meeting. So I came back. Notice how this was resistance here. Orange line, it was holding under 710 for a little while. And then, orange line showed up and then it broke out, right? Nice little pop up from it. Hey, when a stock breaks resistance and runs off of it, the first test of it is the best test. So I was chatting with a student like throughout the mid afternoon saying, this could have been a really good support level. And it was at first. But if we're not getting that big move shortly after and continuing the higher low game and for this to continue up, well, look what happened. Now, there's more to it than just saying that. This stock is likely a very low float stock that trades like crap volume on a day-to-day basis outside of yesterday and today, at least. But, otherwise, though, in the afternoon, if it's not going to make that continuated move up and run up, then the chances of this not just stalling out, but just completely like anviling back down the other way, it greatly increases. So, I was discussing that with a student one-on-one in chat yesterday. So, hey, same will be said here today, right? I don't think anyone was expecting AVGR to make the move that it made this morning, let alone even in the after hours yesterday once the market closed. Look at that pop. That came from nowhere. Like, I don't think that you could look back on yesterday's graph at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock and say, yeah, this is going to be at $12 or $11 tomorrow morning. It's one of those low float, low volume day trades that we would never, ever look to really think about as a swing trade, really. It's something that if it ends up popping up again the next morning as it did today, then maybe there's a chance. But I just want to get the news on the stock, if anything. So what is the news out on the stock? I don't even know that. I'm not even just playing ignorant. I am ignorant right now to the news. So from yesterday morning, dating back to yesterday, AVGR shares trading higher amid the company announcing the commercial launch of its Tiger Eye ST image guided CTO crossing device. I'm not going to try and explain to you what that means. There might be someone here that may actually know about that stuff, but not myself. Now, with that, though, I guess there's some other news that came out in the after hours, though. Spikes up to more than $12 after hours. Company early Monday, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's the same deal. So it looks like AVGR in a filing said something about outstanding common stocks being held by non-affiliates, some sort of financial number that they released, I reckon. So led to a big pop after hours, right? All right, well, hey, game on, right? Hey, what if this stock ends up making another pump up? What if this stock ends up finding support from these levels yesterday, then bounces up again, right? Those are all things that we could think about heading into the open. So really quick, once again, it's easy to say that we know what happened to this stock once again this morning. It popped up and made a small move for us. But as far as where our levels are for this morning, I mean, definitely $8 is a key level just in case if this were to build support. It was having a tough time trying to break above it yesterday. And generally speaking, it was holding under it in the afternoon. And then you could even say 850. I mean, 850, not every 50-cent level is going to be very strong, but it really was holding pretty well as the high of the day right around here on a couple of these bars. So I'll give it that respect. Now, though, let me jump back and move around a bit here. Look at this, dropping right back down. So there we go. All right. So this morning, I took 2 trades on the AVGR. Hey, going into the morning, I didn't really have much of a thirst to trade pre-market, but when I'm looking at a couple of things moving early in pre-market and nothing is going at all, and I see AVGR not tanking, I start sitting there thinking, wow, well, what if there's a chance, What if this ends up making another, pop up once again this morning? So this one ended up coming up, of course, after 8 o'clock. Well, I shouldn't say of course, but for those of us maybe new or just if you're not on TradeStation begins at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, I ended up beginning to follow this, of course, earlier than 8 o'clock, but after 8 o'clock, I am able to begin. So let's show you what happened on Bookmap at first. Now, this had a level around $8.30 in the pre-market hours, just all throughout pre-market. It was building up pretty nicely, CVP level. So at first it tried to make this pop up. made a nice pop up, and then it pulled back. So on the pullback, I was thinking that we could see support build, and I had jumped in right off of it was 832 at the time. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm thinking, all right, there's a shot that this could look to make a nice rebound and push back up. Unfortunately, it didn't really make the big push I wanted at first. It took about like 5 or 6 minutes and it was dragging back down. So I ended up, I think it was like a 4-cent loss on this trade. I ended up getting out pretty quickly. You can't set stops in pre-market as well, just so you know. I got a couple questions coming in from the chat board, so just give me a quick moment here and go over all of your questions and more in just a moment. Now, though, I'm focused on a couple other trades at the time. I'm actually in on Nikola also in pre-market. That's a separate trade. So, I'm juggling Nikola at the time being, and this is starting to rev back up. Things are looking good there. All right. So I'm looking at both and I realized, well, on the AVGR trade, where was it here? Where was it? There we go. It was right before it broke out or as it was breaking out here. So finally, this ends up making the big pop like I wanted at first and for it to continue. I jumped back in on this trade, though, and I jumped back in as it broke above the pre-market high here. And I don't want to sit here very confidently and tell you I do that all the time, and I don't advocate for you to do that every time yourself. Did it work out here? It did. The reason I felt confident to take this trade exactly at this point was because this reminded me of a similar pattern I saw just yesterday. Where I tell you, folks, I try and make my life outside of CTU interesting. I semi-jokingly say that. I don't got a whole lot going on outside of this. So, it's easy for me to remember a lot of these things like day to day. So there was a pattern yesterday that I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was on AFRM even, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm not mistaken because it would be a waste of time if I am mistaken. Yeah, look at this. So AFRM, this is separate company, similar pattern though. Notice how it revved back up. This is during the regular hours at least. But, you have this big iceberg here at $25. It's right at the highs. And look what happened once it cracked the highs there. And this is still to a good level in prime time trading. It's after 10 o'clock, but it's not like 10:30. So you're getting close, but this is the point where this ended up snapping and popping, made a big move, right? In the heat of the moment, I swear to you, in the heat of the moment, this AVGR, once it popped up here without me initially, I took my first trade here at this point as it pulled back, looking for support to build. Well, at this point, though, it ended up moving back up. So as it broke the pre-market high, I ended up jumping in. It looks pretty similar in terms of just the breakout, right? Maybe it didn't drop off as much to rev back up like AFRM did, but this kind of held here off the lows nicely. I wasn't as interested in holding on for a long period of time, nor am I interested in holding on for a long, amount dollar-wise to be a down. So, I was looking for that proverbial big move shortly after. So with that, there we go. Once it popped here, I didn't want to even jump it right back in at E52. Actually, I said to myself, all right, let's wait for the highs here and just see what happens. So I got filled. It was at 872, I think I got filled at. And from there, I closed out pretty much right at 9. I took my exit right at 902 or 905 as it popped up at first. I shoot straight. I tell you that because it broke out even higher here before the market opened up. I wish I could tell you I held on even more. Hey, I took a very small loss on the first shot. On the second shot, I felt compelled to jump in, but you know what? It was on a smaller size anyway to start the morning off with a little plus. I ended up getting out just a little over 9. That was it. So, yeah, a nice little move there altogether on the AVGR in pre-market this morning. That was from pre-market. I had a bunch going on in the chat here, folks. Give me a quick sec. So from Star, one of our trial members here asking me, how come there's no options chain on AVGR? Very good question, actually. Not every stock is optionable. There might be a warrant out on the stock, but we don't really focus as heavily on that. Really, if it's a small cap stock and it does have an options chain, the liquidity is going to be really crappy. It's going to be very bad liquidity. So I wouldn't suggest for you to trade like a illiquid option. You know what I mean? There's a cheap stock that's very liquid on the option side of things, Nikola and KLA, and that's a separate trade from yesterday and pre-market this morning. I know this is optionable, but that's like a bit separate. I don't think this is a small cap or a low float stock at that. So if it's a low float stock, odds are it won't be optionable. What does CVP mean from STAR? That's something I break down a lot further in our main classes. This is something that I just kind of show as a volume histogram, shows where the volume is filled across the given day today. That's all. So you want to focus on a big discrepancy there, a big price level that sticks out like that. And then finally, should we pay attention to VWAP and Elliott Wave? Hey, if anyone uses Elliott Wave or any other indicators, to each their own. We don't want you to mix and match strategy here at CTU, meaning like our strategy is pretty specific. So it's not to say it won't work if you mix and match all these different strategies or you learn from this person, that person, but from the students I coach one-on-one, I know if you look to copy and paste our strategy without everything else, without the other noise out there, it's going to be to your advantage. So, hey, if you use Elliott Wave and you're very profitable with it, that is different because, if you have great experience day trading using anything and you make money consistently with it, then at that point, why would I be one to tell you to change habits? You know what I mean? I figure most of us come to CTU because the strategies that they use either are not generating them enough money that they want, or straight up they're losing with the they're failing and they're losing with the strategies that they're employing. Literally, it's one or the other. So if you're already making money and you're just trying to get to the next level, that is a little different, right? All right. So Chuck, actually here really quickly, not to distract, but your favorite stock, Mara, is sneaking up without you. Chuck, don't say without, my friend. Don't say without. Trust me. We're going to get to Mara coming up very soon. I had this on my radar screen here. We were calling out Mara before Traders Talk, our weekly workshop, even started. I was asking even earlier if anyone jumped in on the Mara trade. Trust me, my friend. We will get to Mara coming up very shortly. But at least what happened on this AVGR trade after the market opened up? Hey, I left some money on the table by getting out just over 9. I could have, held on at least until this iceberg. Wish I could say I did. That would have been the perfect level-to-level move. Flawless execution there, in fact. All right. Well, after the market opened up on this trade, it was already up a lot more than it was from yesterday. So that's a big concern. Really quick, I feel like I'm jumping around a bit, but I want to show you the float. Oh my goodness. I didn't even know it was this low. So allegedly, according to TradeStation, the float on AVGR is less than 1 million shares. It's 670,000 shares. Yeah, big trees fall hard. So, on a trade like this, where this ends up making a nice little pop to begin, nice little slingshot within the first minute or two, well, of course, it runs right into resistance off of 980, then the psychological, decade level at $10. Beautiful resistance. Then from there, it pulled back. So, yeah, obviously at this point already, it's not looking too pleasant when it makes a round trip back down to support. It already hit this. In the first minute. Not only that, it was already holding around 9, nipping and gnawing at this price early in the morning anyway. So the more times that this keeps nipping and gnawing at $9, eventually this is going to look to break under it. So I made a small move to begin. Nice pop up off of it. But where I'm pointing to is, look at where it's at now, right back down to 9. And at this stage now, more than even ever, I think that this is just going to collapse, continue to drop off. So yeah, it did hold off of 9 at first. Broke under, and then it broke back over. And then from there, let me get the chart here and just get the regular. There we go. Basically right there. Zoom in. Yeah, this is pretty choppy around 9 at first. So if you tried to jump in here initially and got stopped out, this was a tough one. And it's not to say one that was expected to run up. This is one maybe you're hopeful to see make a higher high, but even from pre-market, I stand by it. The more times it's nipping and gnawing at 9, it's weakening that level. So thankfully, the Bulls ended up winning this battle for the time being. It popped up a little bit, but look at where the stock lands later on today. That's all I'll say. So if this ends up dropping back down to $7 even, wouldn't shock me by 2:30 Eastern time. You don't want to be on the receiving end of the roller coaster on the way down. That's for sure. And at that, maybe like 850 was a strong level in pre-market. Resistance could be supported first, but otherwise, if 9 was where we had more volume traded from this morning today, volume's going to trump any chart level. So here at this point, if this just tanks from 9, I'd say it's not looking good. All right, really quick. Got to go through email questions right now. Had a bunch of questions come in from email. So just before that, let me get to last one from our trial member here, Star, asking, what should we look for to determine whether we should hold AVGR overnight? Simple answer, you don't. You don't hold AVGR overnight. None of these stocks that are up big percentage-wise ever do you want to hold overnight. Is it possible one might pop up the next morning higher? Maybe. But, I say it bluntly here because really I want to get the point across. I don't think any of us are thinking the following. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are not here to play Mega Millions. You want to play Lotto? Go to your gas station. Get a Lotto ticket. I think, what is it, Wednesday? You got the Mega Millions on Wednesday, is it? Figure it out tomorrow. But otherwise, a stock that makes the top percent gainers list one day oft makes the losers list the next. I mean, obviously, on a very extreme example, let's look what happened to CCG yesterday. Let's look at that DTOC from yesterday, crazy ones. But, the point is to be said as well on AVGR up big today, right? I mean, hey, even look at my pot stocks, Tilray. These did not continue the way that we wanted them to from earlier in August, right? Made a big squeeze up, and they tried on a couple of occasions, but even on a much more liquid, higher float stock, if it's not going to make that big move up, you got to be prepared to sell. It's just to sell on a lower float stock, a stock that is up big percentage-wise, you're going to see a lot more of that profit taking over time. So, that's just something to be very wary of. I'd never look to hold a large percent gainer like that overnight as a swing. All right. So how about this really quick? I got to go through a bunch of email questions. I got a bunch of us waiting on me here. But I'm going to segue it because we got Kathleen who had asked about digital currencies. I may as well just sneak Mara in first. So Chuck was trying to tease me there. It looks like Mara's sneaking on up without you. Oh, no. I can gladly tell you right now, there is one stock I am in right now. I'm actually on calls right now. I'm in on option calls. I took the 950 calls from Mara. So with this, I still have to make sure that we're good to go. We got about 17 minutes till the end of Traders Talk, and it's starting to pull back a little bit here, isn't it, Mara? It's starting to make a small little pullback. So, hopefully not a full-fledged reversal coming up. But Mara, this is an interesting case here. So really quick, I mean, we have new members joining us each and every week, each and every day, so I don't expect every one of us to recall this. I'm just going to ask out loud, does anybody here recall over the last month, if not more, where we've been talking about, this big stack of iceberg orders that were out there on the buy side, on the bid for Mara? We're talking back when this was at like $15, $14. We have a lot of, returning members here day to day. So let me just ask, does anybody recall that? I'm going to show you the picture one more time. You may have heard me mention this a few times in these Traders Talk workshops. I did a whole thing on it in Traders Talk the week I saw it. So, for Ryan, he says he recalls it. All right. So little teaser here, a little refresher, might I say, actually. I don't have the second picture of this. I wish I had the second picture. This was taken from August 29th. August 29th here. And this is back when Mara was $15. So basically, every 10 cents, I can't zoom in, this is just a picture, but every 10 cents, there was an iceberg order for about 40 to 50,000 shares. Every 10 cents. I've never seen this before, let alone on my favorite stock, Mara. Well, this picture showed it go from basically 15 all the way down to a bottom of 1050. Now, if you recall, I took a swing trade on Mara back when Mara was at 1045, 1050, back here. Well, hey, at the time, this led to a great little move. There was actually some I don't want to say fake news, some news that led to a nice pop. I wasn't as bullish on the news at the time. And for what it's worth, I wish I got out off that pop. It pulled back. It was a decent swing, but I ended up getting stopped out with barely any profit because Well, I don't want it to come back down to my entry price. So I had good reason to think it was going to break lower if it wasn't going to build support. It's like in relation to Bitcoin, basically. Well, obviously it pulled back over time. I got stopped out with like barely any profit. Well, this was the first picture I saw of this. After I took the snapshot, a couple of days after the snapshot was taken, a new stack of iceberg orders showed up. And this new stack had iceberg orders all the way down to, well, I can't show it on this one, but all the way down to 950. Every 10 pennies, the same pattern. Literally, carbon copy, same pattern, 40 to 50,000 shares, all the way down to all the way down to 950. So I had that in the back of my head yesterday when Mara came down to 950. I took a day trade on the stock at the time. Just going into the afternoons, I'm not as trigger happy to do options. I want to focus my trading around prime time trading when I'm trading options because they're more volatile. So I'm going to either get the move I want or I'm just going to take the loss or, take a break even or likely a loss because it's just a little different how I manage the option trade there. But otherwise here led to a nice bounce, but I didn't get a whole lot out of it, did I? A nice bounce, but it didn't make that big, pop and run up that I wanted, right? Oh, Ryan, thank you. Big shout to Ryan right now inside our live trading room. Bingo. How about this? Haha. How about this? The salesman in me. Join us inside our live trading room. Scan the QR code. I'm not going to show it on YouTube, not going to show it on my screen here. But if you're in our trading room right now, you can click that image that Ryan so graciously posted. I think I may have sent that to him in a private chat, maybe. Oh, no, Ryan, I'm sorry. That's actually the same one. That's the 1051, my friend. Damn. I thought he posted the 951 there. That one shows it down to 1050, Ryan. All right. Well, if there is the picture where it shows the 950, I'd love to have it there. I thought Ryan had it for me. I couldn't find it myself. I dug through on my own side, but it's just that here, this led to a nice little bounce, but not like the big move that you'd want to see, that big pop. All right, well, let me ask us here really quick. Brian, Ryan, Sam, and all of us here in the chat board, what time do we typically see stocks reverse throughout the morning? What time? 10:30. So when Mara is dropping down to 950 here and the time is 9:50 in the morning, roughly. I'm on a 5-minute chart there. Basically prior to reversal time when it's trying to come down to that support, I'm not really that bullish on it. I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is pretty early. Just normally we should expect this to drop off more. And it did. All right. Well, it dropped off more, and I'm thinking, all right, well, hell, what's the next level under 950? I had a historical at like 919, 920, basically a doji back from May, and I thought it would just drop down to there. So, I was looking for that lower level. It bounced in between, just kind of randomly in between there. So I'm thinking, all right, well, support should become resistance, 950 resistance. Well, it popped above it pretty quick, didn't it? I'm thinking, well, all right, well, you know what? We're getting a little closer to 1030, little closer. Obviously, we should know that not every stock reverses head on at 1030. Trading is that easy. You and I would not be here. So I said, you know what? It's not just the time that I'm focused around. It's the level that I'm focused around. And I know what I saw. I saw those stack of icebergs, all the way down to 950. We're talking like 3 weeks ago. This was at this point. I haven't seen them since, really. But something that epic, something that crazy looking, you don't really tend to forget that often, right? Now, just miscellaneous here. Miscellaneous, folks. This is not mandatory. This is not required. This is just my psychotic brain kind of tying this in. Who here is familiar with Fibonacci's? Fibonacci's. Tracement lines and all that good stuff. Anyone here familiar with fibs? Again, hey, one of us was asking about Elliott wave oscillator. I don't use the Elliott wave at all. I rarely use Fibonacci's. But I thought to myself here, I said, you know what? Let's actually look at the bottom to top here. We had from end of last year to beginning of this year, right? I think this is what I was trying to go for. I hope this was what I was trying to go for here. It might actually be a different one. Give me a moment here. Okay, I got it. My apologies. Different one, I think. I had a fib up at least, and I was seeing a very strong correlation. I hope that I can get this straight. Maybe it was from here. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. I had it earlier. Oh, no. Bad commentary here. I had a fib up. Now, what happened was earlier inside our room, you probably heard me. My TradeStation platform rebooted, and I lost all my good freaking lines here. So bear with me for a brief moment. I had this beautiful Fibonacci set up to where 950 was a strong bottom, or it was one of the bottom lines. It was the 61.8% line. So, it tied into my thesis pretty nicely. Oh, is this it? Okay, this might be it, actually. I may have had it right the first time right here. Maybe my numbers were slightly off. So I think this was it. My apologies. Yeah, from bottom to top, loosely speaking, you could see right around 945, 950, the 61.8%. Hey, it's not mandatory. That is not required. That is not, something that every one of us needs to use. But that is like even tertiary to me, meaning that I'm focused on the icebergs first. I'm focused on the bounce that we had yesterday from the iceberg that was there at 950. Well, the fact that I see a fib level so perfectly tie into that area, I said, you know what? Let's take that entry once it pulls back and hits 950 as support. So this is where I bought the calls. It was just pretty much like at the money, slightly in the money right when it pulled back. But hey, if we're expecting a good move shortly after, as long as my stop is set, in this case, I bought the premium, or I bought the calls. So I set the stop like a few pennies under the premium that it was set at. I think I'm in at like 44 cents. Quick sec. I'm at 42 cents on the calls. Right now, they're trading at like 58, 59 cents currently. So you want to set it just a couple pennies at that, a few pennies at that under your level or under where you get in from, because I'm playing it around this equity level. So if it's not going to hold my equity level here, and especially with it being right at the money, a big shakedown, and I'm going to pretty much get stopped out, right? And that's normal, because that's normally what I would expect to have happen with my stock day trades, right? Brian asked me, what expiration date are you playing? For this one, I just did the weeklies. This is just like a day trade, basically, I'm doing. So to go further really briefly, I'm basing a swing around Bitcoin price, but I think Bitcoin's going to drop off pretty strongly before we get the real bounce that we want. So, my swing on Mara that I'm going to focus on will be around that. This is a day trade, or maybe I switch it into a swing. We'll see how well Mara does this afternoon, but I set the expiration date for this week. All right. Now, a little heads up, though, actually, if you're joining us on at our on-site or on the webcast even as well, I'm going to be doing a workshop, full 60-minute workshop on how to day trade options using level 3 and level 4. So definitely something I know a lot of us are looking forward to already, but I have a full workshop A to Z lined up for us there. All right, now I'll tell you what, before some students yell at me, this is where I went off course. So I want to make sure I go through some emails that came in already. There we go. Kathleen, I'm going to go through hers first because this is where I tie it back to the emails. Water break first. If Biden changes to the digital dollar, what effect will this have on stock prices? All right. So, hey, folks, right out the gate in the main chat board, we're only here to talk just about what happens with the stock market and different equities, or what may happen with CBDCs, as they call them, central bank digital currency. If the government institutes like an official CBDC, or like they really go further into that, which they will, I believe they will at least, you're going to see a lot of volatility first. You're going to see a lot of hesitation beforehand, but then once the volatility cools off, you're going to see a lot of people sitting on their hands saying, this isn't for me. Well, it is going to be for them at some point, because, like or hate crypto, like or hate the digital market, digital currencies. If there is a good opportunity looking at a chart, if there is a ticker that has good liquidity out there, let's say like, hey, my lovely Mara, right, which is, more crypto mining, Bitcoin mining than anything, it's going to be tradable. So right now, I don't know of any specific companies that specialize in like helping the government with CBDCs or digital currency just yet. I don't know if there's any at all, but otherwise, hey, perhaps it could have a good impact on like Coinbase. Perhaps it could have a good impact on Mara and Riot over time, at least. Hey, if the value of Bitcoin is affected in a positive way, then all of the companies that hold Bitcoin and produce Bitcoin, they're going to look to go up in value over time. That's really just the nature of the game with anything crypto related, right? Star asking here in the chat board, is this options workshop for trial people too? So that's in relation to our special trader summit, our special on-site course coming up next week. That's in person in our office, or at the Viana Hotel, I should say, in around our office, around Westbury, New York. So that is more for our students, and that's limited seats available as well, just so you know. But Fausto is going to make an announcement on that coming up in just a few minutes, if not mistaken. And with that in mind, I probably have to talk rather fast. I think I have a tight exit time here at 12 o'clock. So I'll tell you what, for my students that I don't have a chance to go through their emails live, I'm going to just private chat you just inside the trading room, right? So I'll message you on the side directly inside our live trading room, just coming up once we're done here. Had a question coming in from one of our students regarding the AVGR from earlier. So there we go. There's 850. Got caught on the pullback at 935 yesterday and lost some money. Can you go over how to set the limit order up with exact stop loss with numbers? So just to go into that one more time, if you got caught on the pullback at 935, it leads me to ask, did you just have an order hanging out there? Or was it just a matter of it like, if you leave an order out there on the bid and it gets filled on the way down, it popped up at first, it shook around. The question is, where's your big level? 7 could be a big level, which, you would hypothesize whole number levels are. We said that earlier in the review here. Is there an actual order, though? Is there evidence? Orange line. Is that evidence? Well, when the order size is only about like 3,800, 4,300, I wouldn't have as much strength in that just yet. So it looks like at first, maybe it could build up as a level over time, but at this point, it's already under the level, shaken back down. Simply put, just like we always say, just generally speaking, when you enter a trade, it has to be from a valid level that you've actually seen to be big, not just a little peak or, the last high in the last candle or any miscellaneous, just like we always go over in traders talk here. It has to be largely planned out. If there was a big level that really stood out there, then perhaps once you jump in, that's where you could say you want to set your stop just mere pennies under your big level, if anything. All right, so I think I do have a very tight exit time, if I'm not mistaken, Rich. Getting the queue right now, so really quickly, got last one, trying to zip through this, Ryan, because Ryan was trying to be my buddy right there before and help me with the Mara. So one question from Ryan on this one, actually. Can you list the historical resistance levels on the daily chart that could act up as a top for AVGR? So right away, you go back to this past year because it dropped and tanked and tanked and tanked. Had a small bounce, then tanked and tanked and tanked. So this area here, wherever this bottomed out at, like 14.50, $15, that was a support level historically speaking. It became resistance here, seemingly. That's easy to say, just after the fact, right? Spiked over it, but then pulled back and tanked. Look, there isn't a whole lot that sticks out like a sore thumb. Maybe this little top here, 11.10 or so. $11.10 really quick. There you go. Yeah, notice actually, Ryan, it's easy to say looking at this after the fact, and I just want everyone to know that I know that because, hey, if you do this beforehand, it will still give you the same result, but at least on a smaller scale from late June into early July, it held this pretty nicely. Well, it's not just one peak. It was a series of highs right here, right? 11.10, 11.10 on a number of days. Pretty interesting where the high of the day was today. Well, not the after hours high from last night, but high of the day today. It was an 11.10, just about 11.15. All right, folks, we're finishing up. There we go. So, hey, folks, really quickly for all of us on YouTube, Facebook Live, etc., scan the QR code on the top left, get you access for the remainder of this day and the full week ahead inside our live trading room. Get you access to all of our instructors, Fausto included. Now, really quickly, though, we're going to jump off inside our trading room here. All of our students right now, all of our gold, platinum, diamond, CTU students, you folks have access. Click that link right there that Rich posted in the chat board. Get you access to a new webinar room joined up by Fausto and myself here coming up. We look forward to seeing you there. Rich will be in the chat board here making some commentary. Things are kind of quiet, though, otherwise. I'm not just saying that to say it. It's the day of the Fed meeting. So don't just look to trade here coming up. That's why we actually scheduled this workshop coming up, Fausto and myself specifically. Hey, really quick, folks, I have to jump off, so I'm talking fast. If you have any last questions, shoot me over a quick email, josh@ctutrading.com, and I'll chat with you on the side coming up. All right. Talk to you all.